Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we're going to be doing another installment of the weekly meta breakdown where we look at the top performing decks on the MTG Arena ladder. This particular video is for traditional best of 3 Explorer on MTG Arena. We will be getting our data in this particular video from a couple different sources. Normally we get it from Untapped GG, but sometimes for the Untapped results for best of 3 formats, the population is not as large. But there's also a lot of tournaments that take place, so we want to look at both tournament results as well as just high-performing individual decks on the ladder. So we'll be looking at MTG Melee as well as MTG Arena Zone as well. Untapped is a deck tracker, tracks win rates, loss rates, so we have percentages. Link is in the video description with all the details of the tool if you want to get using that. And we'll jump in. This is September 1st through the 19th, so we're going to look at all of Dominaria because this is the first time we've done a best of 3 video for the format. And before we go in, I actually want to mention to folks, if you're interested in playing in an Explorer tournament, the Pizza Box Tournament Series from Hollywood Pizza, another content creator. It's a free-to-play tournament, Sunday, September 25th, hosted on MTG Melee. So you'll be playing the Explorer format on Arena. It's a kind of online tournament you can play in. Free-to-play, $90 prize in cash. If you want to jam some Explorer, there's prizes paid out, $50 for the first place in USD dollars. So you can, I'll put this link in the video description if you do want to join. Hollywood Pizza has 3 tournaments a month. Each time a tournament is a different format, standard, historic, alchemy, whatever it may be for that particular format. So if you do want to join, you click that link and follow. And these are some deck lists that you could potentially play. Top performing deck in best of 3 is Abzan Greasefang. So we've seen this deck a bit in the best of 1 format. It is a very popular deck, 61% win rate, and basically is the combination of Greasefang, Okiba boss, basically lets you reanimate a vehicle from your graveyard. So it's a bunch of self-mill features, and ideally you want to get Parhelion into your graveyard, and technically as early as turn 2, but more reliably on turn 3, you can attack for 13 damage with haste, leaving 2 4/4 angels behind. You also have the Skyship Consul Flagship, which is really good in the Raktos matchup to hit your opponent's creatures, planeswalkers, all that. And this deck's got the fair game plan with the Esika's Chariot just to go wide, kind of beat down your opponent that way. Liliana the Veil is the new addition to the deck from Dominaria. Lets you discard your threats, its removal, and kind of punish those control decks in a way. You have redundancy with Can't Stay Awake to reanimate your creatures. Corpse Churn and Grisly Salvage help you mill and bring the Greasefang to hand. You can mill with Witherbloom Command as well. Raffine helps you loot, and then copies of Stitchers to mill, and Thoughtseize to eat at your opponent's hand. Your sideboard, as always what we do with the sideboard is kind of just to highlight matches that they'll come in for. And really it's dealing with your opponent's various control hate cards. So they're going to bring in stuff to target your graveyard typically. That could be copies of Unlicensers, could be Rest in Peace, it could be Scavenging Ooze, a whole bunch of things like that. So you have like Terra Sunder, Artifact or Enchantment to blow up, hits like Unlicensers. You have Trophy, Catch-All Removal. Duress can eat away at cards in their hand. That would potentially be those hate pieces. Fatal Push for the more creature-focused decks against like Sacrifice, stuff like that. These are also very good against like the Cat Oven decks. Graveyard Trespassers for the heavy removal decks, but also the graveyard focus decks from your opponent's side. They have to 2-for-1 themselves, so this is a good card and can gain you some life. And then, like I said, the Skysovereign Consul Flagship, Thoughtseize, Skyship for short. This is really good in the Raktos matchup, just dealing with their threats. And then it's something that's harder for them to kill because they typically don't bring in too much artifact removal. Most of the lists aren't on Kolaghan's Command in the sideboard. Speaking of Raktos Midrange, this is probably the deck you're going to most run into in the best of 3 format. It is by and far the most popular Pioneer deck, and it got an injection. There's a few different ways and kind of collaborations of the cards that you'll see. Even in like, I'm building this deck in paper, and every time I look at MTGO top 5 from Pioneer or 5.0 lists, everyone's slightly different. But the new cards, you're obviously playing Liliana, a very powerful card. This usually is seen as a 3-of in the deck. So Sorin has been either cut from lists or relegated to the sideboard, and it's usually 1 Chandra, 3 Lilianas in most of these lists. And then Most of the lists are actually running 2 Shieldred main instead of the Kalitas main. This particular list is running Kalitas main. It really depends on what you're looking at in terms of the meta. In terms of like sacrifice decks, this is better against, but Shieldred helps you against more of the like creature focused decks. Really just a house in the Mire as well. 5 toughness goes a long way in a lot of these matches. And then it's just like 2-for-1 value train. You'll see like Bone Crushers, Graveyard Trespassers, Fable holding the glue together. This particular list is running a Braid main. You'll sometimes see combinations of like Heartless Act, and I think I still like Heartless Act over Inferno Grasp. This deck does a lot of damage to itself, so further punishing yourself. Like you have Thoughtseizes, you have Shocklands, this could potentially deal 3 to you. So I like the Heartless Act. Eliminate's getting played for the fellow Lilianas, but can also hit stuff like Greasefang. Hearst main is a reasonable call. Some of them will play Tenacious Underdog. So there's a lot of different ways to build, and like what we're seeing, this list has 150, but there's a lot of different ways to kind of look at this Raktos list. Sideboard wise, one thing with a lot of the decks moving towards Shieldred, you'd probably want to either switch Lava Coil for Soulseer or just have more access to 2 mana hard removal spells like Heartless Act to deal with the Shieldred. In terms of Graveyard Hate, you have like Soul Guide Lantern, Hearse. This version is opting to go with some Bank Busters for card advantage post board for the Raktos Mirrors. Noxious Grass for green or white decks. Extinction Events good against the bigger, chunkier green decks. Go Blank for card hate and like Graveyard Hate. Braids is catch-all removal, and Artifact Hate is some Duress, and Sorin for the grindier matchups. So kind of pivoting now to MTG Melee. So this is actually from last week's Pizza Box Open Explorer, so you can check out in the tournament itself if you want to see, for example, more Raktos lists. The top 8 was heavily dominated by Raktos, but this is an example of the Mono Blue Spirits list that is another good contender and can kind of prey on some of these Raktos lists. So you're using a bunch of Spirit synergy, so like Mausoleum Wanderer gets bigger and can be used as a counter spell, Spectral Sailor for card advantage, Rattle Chains for protection and making your stuff have flash, Shacklegeist as a way to kind of offense, defense, control your opponent's board in terms of attackers. You have Supreme Phantom as a Lord effect. You have Ascended Spirit as something that could be mana can be sunk into, and it grows bigger. What we've seen in the new set is we're getting copies of Combat Research added to the Curious Obsession package, so you now have 6 ways to draw cards. Geist Snare, slip out the back and spell pierces all forms of interaction. You got some Disputes for counter spells, Witness Protection on the sideboard for kind of removal, slip out the back as protection, Unsubstantiate as a tempo card, Aether Gust against the red base decks. You got Cerulean Drake, which can say like mono red, you can just strap it up with a whole bunch of enchantments and only really Bone Crusher can deal with it at that point, and then Hearse for Graveyard Hate. Then we got some decks that have done well on the ladder. So this is Boros Goblins by Kunkoli Goblin, number 56 Mythic in September. So this is a mono red Goblins list that's splashing white for Anthem effects as well as card advantage. So just like a really go wide strategy. We have Reuven Vault Horde Master that can provide you card advantage off the top of your library. War Boss, Hobgoblin as ways to kind of push more damage or more creatures, Hordeling Outburst, as well as Dragon Fodder to go wide. Icon of Ancestry as a Lord effect, Rally the Ranks as a Lord effect, Showdown of the Scalds to refill your hand, which is really nice. And then you just got like Grind Elements with Chandra, Goblin Chainwhirler good against like small creature decks, weenie decks, stuff like that. Braids is catch-all removal, Fry as kind of the Rending Volley of adjacent cards, some Burning Hands for bigger things, just kind of removal based on what the creature deck is. Weathered Runestone to target graveyard decks, and then Rest in Peace as well. So this also hits Collected Company decks, so differentiating their graveyard hate pieces in the deck. Then move to, this is another content creator, Jaffer, got to number 16 Mythic at one point this month. The Mono Green Stompy list. So lots of early ramp in this deck, and you're looking to get out Defiler and Vigor, which then lets you pump up your squad a bunch. Mana sinks in the form of like Ranger's Class. Great Henge lets you draw cards. Mana sink in form of Werewolf Pack Leader. Mana base wise, it's Snow Package for Blizzard Brawl, but then you got Lair and Boseiju. Sideboard Artifact Enchantment Hate. This is really good against the Spirits matchup. Questing Beast for like the more controlling matchups, or like Planeswalker heavy. Good into Raktos as well. Protection spells, fight spells, aggro, getting you life, graveyard hate, and this is really good in the Raktos matchup as well. Then move to Banned Humans, got about top 1500. So if you're looking to play like a Human Collected Company deck, there's a port of this in Pioneer with like Experiment 1. So playing some other cards in here, but it's a base white deck using Collected Company with Human Synergy. Your payoffs are things like Thalia's Lieutenant, which pumps up your squad. You could blink it or get it back from your graveyard with these two cards here, Charming Prince or Extraction Specialist. Nice synergy between the three. New cards include Guardian of New Benalia, harder to kill and enlist. You got card advantage because somehow this is a human, even though it's half wolf. Thalia for taxing, La Gorilla as creature removal, Adeline to snowball. This allows you to have like Unclaimed Territory, Secluded Courtyard in your mana base, and then your sideboard. This one's very clean. Hand hate in terms of taxing effects, counter spells, especially with Go Wide. That's an interesting actual inclusion. You kick it, you get some creatures too. Early aggressive hate, just kind of catch-all removal, and then Unlicensed Hurts for graveyard. You probably want something, like looking at this, there's no real clean answer to like a Shield Druid. You probably want something like Fateful Absence maybe, just catch-all, but very clean sideboard. And then lastly, we have Temur Fires, got 146 by Exotic Roller. So this is a Karuga deck, companion, so all your cards have to be 3 CMC or more. You get around that by having Brazen Borrower and Bone Crusher Giant, which counts this converted mana cost, not this here. And this deck is looking to build around Fires and Invention to play 2 spells per turn and use your excess mana. You can use that to pump mana into like Cavalier Flames, channel your Colossal Sky Turtles. You have Fable to copy like Cavaliers. And then we got a new edition of Aether Chandler that can draw cards, bounce, tempo, or give you some birdie tokens. You got Graveyard Hate, you got Creature Hate in terms of sweepers. Your stuff's usually a bit bigger. Artifact Enchantment Hate, Artifact Hates could kind of ramp you in a way. I think I'd rather just play a Braid, to be honest. Oh, actually, you can't play a Braid because of Karuga, so that's why they're playing this. Mystical Dispute as your counterspell, and then some Klothys as more Graveyard Hate and kind of the more controlling matchups. Sideboard's listed below. You got some access to castles for mana, and then Den of the Bugbear as your creature land. So that's it. Let me know what you've been playing, if you have been playing Best of 3 Explore. And like I said, if you do want to play some tournament magic, check out the link that I'll post to Hollywood Pizza's tournament coming up. In any case, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one and stay safe out there.